writing this to help free other minds. My story of a 12-year struggle with the VAT and advancement from Stroma to Sovereign. I was running a small but successful subcontracting firm within the conservatory industry. All sounds good, but I had words with my wife and had left the marital home and had drank too much for well over 2 years. 2 years or so in, I received a phone call on my mobile from a VAT thug saying that I was registered for VAT and I could owe as much as £86,000. I genuinely thought this a joke from the pub, told her this and hung up. I then rang my wife and was told that all my mail had been re-hand delivered to an address in a flat complex I had stayed briefly after leaving. No mail could be found, and unless you have a VAT number, obtaining information is a waste of time. Was the £86,000 phone call a wind-up? I still had no clue. I had asked my wife to open my mail and soon received a demand for £22,253, so contacted the VAT and informed that registration had been imposed, but the amount had now been amended to £4,051 and was for unpaid returns. I then phoned work, and on telling them of my VAT obligations, my employment was terminated. All work was contractual priced without VAT being added. I then returned home living with my wife and began looking for work. Soon after, I received correspondence from the VAT saying I had to sign a form saying I was a director. I now know an attempted director's penalty trap. I rang the VAT saying I had lost my employment because of their actions and I would not sign it. Soon after, I received demands for £11,096.37. I then rang the VAT, quoted my VAT number and was informed that this other amount was not showing on my account, only the £4,651. Where did this other figure come from, I asked, and was simply told he did not know. I then spotted that this larger amount had a completely different VAT number attached to it, but I had already started the deregistratio process, months of lengthy phone calls, and 4 years in I received a letter saying I was deregistered and my account had been amended to £0. For a brief moment, I was happy again. Then, non-stop, year after year, I received demands for this £11,096.37. This was really £12,010.02 because £930.65 rebate was removed from my income tax account without my consent or knowledge. At first I would ring the bailiff or the VAT and simply say check my account status. After 3 successful years of this practice, it became apparent that although I had never signed a single VAT document and had been deregistered, or £0 showing on my account, this meant nothing. They tried to impose this unsubstantiated director's penalty, sent bailiffs who demanded my car and sent paperwork threatening bankruptcy. No, they did not get my car. At this point I was at my wit's end and still a Stroma, so I sent an email to the PM asking for the VAT's actions to be looked at as I was deregistered. Well, within a few weeks, the amount owing was doubled, but another letter a few days after had reduced it to the original amount. It must go to the So-Say High Court if the amount is over £15,000. So they wanted to keep this within their own corruptly primed magistrates' system. I received the results of a review, full of lies, on a deregistered account showing £0 without informing or any consultation with myself. I was hand-served a statutory demand for £11,096.37 and it stated they intended to present a bankruptcy petition to be held in a London High Court if this amount was not paid in full within 21 days. I then phoned the VAT and pointed out these lies and said that proof of this is all over your previous correspondence and my recorded phone calls. Also, I have had enough of the VAT and wanted an independent review. At this point I was told that it must go through a 3-tier complaints procedure before being released to any independent authority, and I should reply in writing and ask for things to be elevated to the 2nd tier of the complaints procedure, and end of conversation. As if by magic I then found a video on YouTube called The Strawma, The Nature of the Cage. https://v=7sarxw6ajng. Strongly recommended. This put me onto https://www.getoutofdebtfree.org, and along with many other videos my Strawma caught fire and I was no longer in the dark. I sent 3 letters to the VAT, one asking to be shown the authority they use to register without the person's consent, also the authority they are using to pursuing a deregistered account, and your oath of office, because you have never answered a single question I have asked to this day. In fact, I have never had a question answered from the 11 or so corporations I have successfully challenged. The requested information will not be acceptable in the form of a letter, and that I must be able to substantiate the above on a government website, as if this could ever be true, or another reliable source. Also, the first letter in the https skeptical smiley / www.getoutofdebtfree.org 3-letter process was included along with the removal of implied access. All were sent all in the same envelope. The implied right of access was ignored as a Mr. J. Beaver hand-delivered a statutory demand and a reply from a Mr. T. U.S. complaints manager. Your correspondence is clearly based on information from certain websites and is similar to others that I have. We are not bound by any of the unreasonable conditions you have set. I also point out that we must write to you in your correct legal name. If you have changed your name by deed poll, please provide me with a copy of the document and I will update our records. Perhaps this should have been a low point in my life, but I had come across a video on YouTube. https://v=sign n291i3tzoc. It was regarding council tax and had been composed by a barrister for an 84-year-old woman whom the council had been harassing for money and ignoring everything the poor woman had said. I listened and thought, my God, this fits my case like a glove. So I simply copied this letter changing Hickory Council to VAT and streamlined bits of the text to fit my situation better and popped it in the post box. Within a few days, I received a phone call from Mr. Roy Davies' complaints team. He told me that he alone was dealing with this case and that I should not phone anybody else, only him. I noted from his conversation tone that things seemed different, but yet another lie became apparent when he told me that I had always known of this other VAT number. I simply said, perhaps you should read Jane Kingdom's review again, as it clearly states the date this number was supposedly generated. Again, end of conversation. I rang the VAT the following morning, purposely avoiding Roy Jones as I wanted to speak to Mr. T. U.S. This conversation was very strange as another man answered. Cannot recall his name. He could not believe what was happening as I had been deregistered nearly 6 years ago. He promised to ring me within the hour, and on his return call he was extremely apologetic for how I had been treated since deregistratio and for me not to worry and I would be all right, but as it was not his case he could not get involved. I eventually got through to Mr. T. U.S. and asked him why he thought we are not bound by any of the unreasonable conditions you have set was a correct response. And that IT stands for information technology. That is what the internet is for, to exchange information, is it not? And as a public servant you should answer all my relevant questions. Also, other stuff about VAT mandate and his oath. It was true what they were saying in these videos, you can have fun. Mr. Teus just did not know what to say, but he did say I would be alright, and Mr. Roy Davies seemed annoyed that I was going through the main switchboard. Things were quiet for 3 months, then a letter from Mr. Roy Davies. It said, I last spoke to you on November the 25th, 2016, and we discussed points to do with your outstanding debt to HMRC. I then contacted our debt management team and I have been waiting to hear from them. I am pleased to tell you the team have now contacted me. They told me that they will take no further action over your debt. Yet another lie, as he clearly told me that he alone was dealing with my case. Conclusion. Although a wonderful result, I feel numb because I have been lied to on every occasion. They still have my £930 rebate and I am left wondering if I should start actions to retrieve this amount. A wonderful quote. The meek shall inherit the earth. I would like to add, the internet is the key.